good. Baruch, why? Perspective, everybody wants.
Afraid of that, like that burning coals, what's it, they'll burn you with their tongues or whatever.
That's right. Okay, we are in Tzidkas Hatzadik, Lamed Daled. Which on its surface, which Reb Tzadok can never be learned on its surface, but on its surface, Reb Tzadok is learning pshat, further pshat in the Mishnah. Just to point out, there's been about at least 20 osios explaining the Gemara of Gimel Mishmaris Have Alayla. But sometimes you can forget the basics. I just want to review with you quickly the Mishnah that everybody knows by heart. The Mishnah at the beginning of Shas says, "May masai kairina shma ba'arvin." What is the Zman Kriya Shema at night? So the Gemara says, "Mishash hakohanim nichnasim lechol trumasam." So it starts. The Zman Kriya Shema starts when Kohanim start eating their truma, which means it's nighttime, supper time. Ad soif ha'ashmara rishayno, which the Gemara explains later on, as we know very well, that b'pashtus there are 3 mishmaris in the Laila. So if you'll take an average night and divide it into 3, so you'll have each. Let's talk about 4 hours, 4 hours, 4 hours, like that. That'll be the shazmanius of a in real. Okay. Now. So it means this Pashat Pshat. It means that when it gets dark, the Kohanim sit and eat their truma. The workday's done. There's not much you're going to do in the field any longer. Electricity wasn't invented, and it's bedtime. It's bedtime. Time to go to sleep, and So then we think about ancient man, who were hunters, gatherers, and went to sleep and woke up with the sun. That was the. They also were cannibals and any kind of people. I don't know why we want to be like them, but in terms of Zmanim, that's the way it worked. It worked with the sun. So the Mishnah continues. It says, this is all according to Rabbi Eliezer. Chachamim oimrim, the Chachamim say ad chatzos, that you can go until midnight, meaning that what? That until midnight. What mishmar is that? Midnight? 1.5, but it's, in other words, or let's make it easier for us mathematically. Let's say you'll divide the night into 3, make it easier. Gimel mishmar zavalayla, machlekes in the Gemara. If you'll divide the night into 3, so chatzos means the emsodem tiyusa. That's the middle of the middle mishmar. So Chachamim oimrim ad chatzos, until the middle of the middle mishmar, people still going to sleep. And since people are still going to sleep, in other words, the night owls, the late night people, even though the sun isn't shining, they're up. Rabbi Gamliel says, I'll take you further than that, ad shiyala amud hashachar, which the Gemara explains, because he's got a different pashat pshat. He's got a different pshat over here. The pshat in Rabbi Gamliel is not when do people go to sleep, b'shach b'cha, when do people go to sleep, but when are people asleep? So people are asleep. So who told us, Rabbi Gamliel's, the way the Gemara is going to explain, who told you that b'shach b'cha means when people go to sleep? Maybe it means b'shach b'cha, sleep time. So sleep time is from ad shi'ala amud hashachar. If you're going to sleep with the sun, you're waking up with the sun. So ad shi'ala amud hashachar is sleep time. So it could be Rabbi Gamliel has a fundamental argument here in pshat in the word b'shach b'cha. Ad shi'ala amud hashachar. And then the Mishnah tells us the story. Maisa uvo banav mi beis hamishta. By the way, does anyone know which Rabbi Gamliel this would be? There was Rabbi Gamliel, the Zaken, the son of Hillel, grandson of Hillel. And then the last one is Rabbi Gamliel the Yavna, and there was one in the middle. And in between a bunch of Shimon and Gamliel. So which one is this?
The middle one.
You think it's the middle one?
I think because the Mishnah speaks about his sons that came back from
A party.
party.
His sons came home late, right? So he's standing by the window, and his sons come back from the party. Amrulo, Lo karinu eshma. That's a good tactic, by the way. Oh, yeah, kriya shma. Like karinu eshma. Amar lahem, Seder, im lo Allah amud hashachar chayavim atem likrais. Actually, I looked into it as machlokes rishonim, believe it or not, which Rabbi Gamliel we're talking about over here. The Pashat Pshat is this is the Rabbi Gamliel Diavne. Rabbi Gamliel III, which of course was way before Rabbi Yudan Nasi, 100 years before Rabbi Yudan Nasi. So Rabbi Yudan Nasi brings him as a shita, and it's just curious to me. Rabbi Gamliel Diavne, his son's going partying. Where they go to the base of Mishnah, where they go to Ashdod. I mean, it's just interesting to visualize, which I think will be important. But that's what the Mishnah says. It says Reb Tzadok, im pshat, pashat pshat, or not such a pashat pshat. A yisoid. I've said this many, many times, that in the works of Reb Tzadok, and I believe this Sfas Emes, the first 5-6 words are the title, the capital of what he wants to say, as opposed to in Litvish Svarim, where it starts with a kashin, with a raya, and then a teretz, and you only get it at the end. In Hasidic Svarim, but for sure in Reb Tzadok, starts with the yisoid, then they prove the yisoid. Just a different mahalach in learning and writing. So the yisoid here is Kol Halayla Ibre L'Shinta. The Hashem created night for the purpose of sleeping. That's what it's for. Why take away? Like, why is there, let's just think fundamentally for a second. Why is there such a thing as night? Hashem could have created the world. Wouldn't we be a lot more productive if it would just be sunshine all the time, like some, far-flung countries? Of course, our whole life and our whole Yiddishkeit is based on the fact that the sun goes up and the sun goes down. But what is the purpose of night? And the answer is Kol Halayla Ibre L'Shinta, because the whole purpose of night, the whole creation of night, is for the purpose of sleeping. Okay, let's take it a little bit deeper. What's the purpose of sleeping? Wouldn't it be better if we didn't have to do that?
Rejuvenation. Rejuvenation.
Yeah.
So that you can work in the day.
I know, but why didn't he make us just
Capable.
keep on going? So the answer is that I think the answer is that there's something to be gained from Yom, and there's something to be gained from Laila. There's something to be gained from being awake, spiritually, physically, and also just the very fact that, let's say my goof, let's put it in these terms, my goof gets calmed down, and I'm now holding in 1/60th of death. Yesh mashu bazeh, there's some ruchnius there also, in the fact that I've calmed my gashmius and maybe my ruchnius can soar. And so we know all the things about what happens at night. Your neshama stands in front of Hashem, etc., etc., etc. So, it's Shena part of the bria, but it's not a b'diavad. It's all part of the bria. We don't have to be that machmir on it. I can sleep all day, but it's part of the bria, because for not just rejuvenation, but because there's a ruchnius to be gotten from being awake, and a ruchnius to be had from being asleep.
Neshama needs his time as well. So
Neshama time. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's neshama time. It's shut down time for my gashmias. So you could even say, if I want to be radical about it, you can even say that it's a more chashuv time, meaning that most of the Nevi'im receive their nevuah b'chaloim halayla. That there's a time when it's like there's a time in this world, in our life, in our day, that we close down the gashmias, and there's time that we open up the gashmias. There's different times. So there's an avodah here of sleeping.
Wouldn't it make sense rather to, we say istaka b'rais or bara amra, that really night is actually a function of mitzvahs that are...
For sure. I'm going before that. Yeah. I'm going before that. What do you say, Baruch?
Why do we have to say that it's because of the ruchani side of it, not a physical element as well?
No, but then Hashem is creating us in a b'diavad fashion. Like we need to be recharged.
There is a physical element of that process of the recharging. Why does it have to be necessarily for the ruchani side?
So you're understanding something I don't understand. What I'm saying is that, like the fact that your phone has to be put into the charger and recharged, that's a b'diavad, a fault in design. A time will come when it'll just last forever, I presume. So that's tchias hamesim zman or something. So it would seem to me that pashtus advarim, a better version of man would be that I don't need to sleep and I don't need to eat, but eating is a different. Oh, you say not like that, no?
Saying not in the resistance.
Well, it's for sure not true.
From a physical, scientific perspective, there are things that take place during the Shena that one couldn't get while we are awake. So, right, exactly.
It's also not like the comparison. Everybody will use the comparison of recharging a device or something, but it's not. Unless it's not true. Eating would be recharging a device. We eat food, we drink food. That's recharging us. We breathe oxygen. That's the equivalent of an electronic. But sleeping is like a whole different. I might say it's
I don't want to. I don't want to have an argument in biology because it's very possible neither one of us know what we're talking about. But what do you mean? It's a renewal of cells. It's the body taking all the different organs and replenishing them. It's for sure a physical, like eating.
We're not inputting anything. Oh, no, I'm talking about sleeping. I'm saying sleeping is not an active.
It's like
inputting.
eating. Okay.
I'm saying it's interesting.
So what's clear here is we could theorize. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. The positive and negative here. So kol halayla. One thing is clear. Just underline this word. We just learned 4 words. Kol halayla ibre l'shinsa. That's the purpose of night. It was created for sleeping. L'chad man da'amar be'erevin. This goes according to one man da'amar in erevin samachei amid aleph, which we learned a lot about. I'm going to get to in a second in Ois Chaf Dalad about sleeping at night. Ayin sham b'toisvis, and look there in Toisvis. Dahainu leile tzkufas Tammuz. So the Gemara speaks about there that night is made for sleeping, not create. He's saying it very radical. Night is created for sleeping, but you're supposed to sleep. You live with the sun. You go down with the sun. You go up with the sun. And then Tosfos says, not necessarily. That doesn't mean Tosfos and Erevin. This is our main idea here. Tells us that doesn't mean you should necessarily have to go to sleep at Shkia and wake up at sunrise. It's talking about specifically in Tkufas Tevis, Tkufas Tammuz. So Tkufas Tammuz, summertime. Tkufas Tammuz is, according to Chazal, Tammuz of Elul. That's called Tkufas Tammuz. Tammuz of Elul. In another few days, we'll have the shortest night of the year, right? We're getting to the equinox, I think. And what's happening now is the day is very, very long. You start Shabbos, we have the late Friday evening service here. So it's very late in the summer. So Tosfos tells us that when do you go to sleep with the sun and get up with the sun? That's talking about in Tkufas Tammuz. But let's say the sun's setting on December 21st. The sun is setting at 5 o'clock. You don't have to go to sleep at 5 o'clock. You can sit and learn. And Adarabba, this is where the Mefarshim all say in Tosfos, Adarabba, this is where all the Gemaras come in and say that, Ashrei mi, Shalom me Torah b'leilos, that if you can get into the night, this is so interesting with the Bria of Lila. If you could get into the Bria of Lila and be Makadish that and use it for learning, so says Tosfos, that's a better thing to do. So when we say that, when the Gemara says in Erevin that you should go to sleep when it gets dark and get up when it gets light, that's talking about only in Tkufas Tammuz. So what you're talking. So by the way, it's the Rambam extrapolates from all of this, according to the way the Kesef Mishnah learns it, that you're supposed to sleep 8 hours a night. I don't know how he slept 8 hours a night, but you're supposed to sleep. But I don't think he means like everyone's like the Rambam's a doctor and he's supposed to sleep 8 hours a night. But nobody learned it from a Chazal. The pshat in the Rambam is that the Zman Shena, probably the pshat is an 8-hour thing. It's not 12 hours like in the winter. It's like 8 hours like in the summer, and that's when you're supposed to sleep. It's dark. What am I supposed to do? Light a candle, learn Torah. That's what you're supposed to do. Mishalom Delilah, quoting a Gemara in Shabbos. It's the Kisrei Shel Torah, right? So the Rabbah holds like usher to be awake once that's not the pshat. I remember like just as when I first became a rabbi, so it was different. I was in Kollel, and then I was a rabbi, and I didn't have time to learn, or I didn't think I had time to learn. So I went to one of the, I had an opportunity to visit with one of the Dolev, and I said, he says, how's your learning going? So I said, there's not so much time to learn because I'm doing this and I'm doing that. So I just remember, as it rings in my ear, mir darf schneiden von dem Schlafen. He says, don't sleep so much. Okay. That was the Musser, I think it was a curse. Okay. Now a little more Mar Mekaimus. Ayin Tainus Lamed Aleph Amid Aleph. Take a look at Tainus Lamed Aleph Amid Aleph. Now let's not stop looking at the night and start looking at the calendar vis-a-vis the night. So Chamisha Asar B'Av, we know that's a big day on the Jewish calendar, Tu B'Av. So Tu B'Av, the Gemara says in Tainus, the Chamisha Asar B'Av, question there in the Rishayim, what was the big celebration of Tu B'Av? So it says the Chamisha Asar B'Av, Tzarech Lo Haisif. You have to add. Add what? Limud HaTorah. You have to add. B'hainu mechatzit kufas Tammuz. We're talking about Tu B'Av is halfway through Kufas Tammuz. So again, let's just understand the math over here, which this is not my specialty, but the math is that the night gets, let's say the day gets longer and longer and longer, and it goes all the way until Tammuz. Tammuz is not necessarily the longest day. The way Chazal learn it is Kufas Tammuz are the longest days, and Tu B'Av is not, by the way, on the calendar necessarily the longest day, but Tu B'Av is the halfway mark between and when the dissension begins. So we know with the equinox it's June 21st, I think, but Chazal don't refer to June 21st, they refer to Tu B'Av, and that was a big celebration. Why? Because once the night starts getting shorter, then once the night starts getting longer, so now, according to Tosfos, who says that you're only supposed to sleep according to the Tkufas Tammuz, which is 8 hours, so now I have more time, more night, right? The night's getting longer. I have more night to learn Torah in, which, as Nasanel says, Zui Kisra Shel Torah, that the Kisra Shel Torah is to learn at night. So Tu B'Av, one of the mark, which, by the way, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not right there, but I think the Rabbi Hananel says that since they finished chopping the wood for the Marach, we had more time to learn. I think we had more time to learn at night, and specifically at night. When are you going to learn if not at night? When are you going to learn if not at night? You're busy at work all day long. Regular people worked all day long, so you're going to learn at night. So at night, you couldn't ask me to work. So once it came to B'Av, I had more time to learn, and this was like Haya Yamim Tovim Yisrael, like Tu B'Av, that we had a couple more minutes. So, but the truth is, between Yud Daladav and Tu B'Av and Tazayim B'Av, it's a dakistic thing, but it's a halfway mark. So it comes out that if you look at it, if you'll compare the two ideas, are you with me on this? Just a little bit, technical. If you'll compare the two ideas, what comes out is Tu B'Av is Chatzos. You with me on that? Yeah. So, and what happens with Chatzos? There's no darker time than Chatzos. Chatzos is very dark, and Tu B'Av is very dark, but is very light. But the
Av is a dark month. Amazing Av is
in general,
so it's
historically.
Like that's when it falls.
Yeah.
We're talking about it being chatzos in terms of it being chatzos of Tukufas Tammuz Avelu.
It's exactly in the middle of the three. It's a chatzos, a sort of a chatzos. So why is that significant? So here, Reb Tzadok explains, as he's done many times, that there's a klal that you get from point A to point B, or let's say ascension, peak, summiting, and then descension going down. So now you reach the summit, you're at the highest point, just on a graph, you're on the highest point, and now you take one step down, so you're almost at the highest point. No, because once you're on the way down, you've already passed the rove of going up, of that very difficult uphill walk, and now you're only one step down. You're only one step down, but you're in the rove. So rubo kekulo means to say that most of Tkufas Tammuz has passed. So what? So far, just shot in the Gemara. So a klal in Shas, maybe somebody could think of another example where this is useful. The klal in Shas is when at the halfway mark, as soon as you're one step past the halfway mark, you've done the majority. We could already say Rubai Kakulai in Zman. It's a big yisoid by Rav Tzadok. I'm trying to think of another case where we say Rubai Kakulai in Zman. V'acher kach Rubai Kakulai. Uki'ilu. And once that happens, you can say, Kulai Avar, most of it has passed already, and most of it has passed. I know this. I know that in Rabbeinu Yonah, he brings a machlokes. I don't know if there's a comparison or not, but he brings a machlokes when on Yom Kippur is the kapara. So we like to think it's ne'ilah. That's when the kapara is. Otherwise, what are you wasting your time from mincha till ne'ilah and getting all excited? But it could be that the haschalas hayoyim is mechaper. It could be the haschalas hayoyim is mechaper. It could be the yitzuma shel yoyim is mechaper, meaning you need the whole thing to be mechaper. It could be the seif yoyim is mechaper. But like when we're looking at our watches, and you're fasting and you're davening and we're loving Yom Kippur, so what we probably say, okay, most of it's over already. Which is true about 10 o'clock in the morning or something. Like most of it is over. So there's like a rubai kekulai in Kapar also. Uki'ilu kulai ovar, and it's as if it's all past. Ma'alailais maschilin li's gadol, and night begins to grow, which is ironically a good thing. The night begins to grow means in the Gemaras that he's quoting means you can learn more Torah at night. So Ayin Mishnah, let's go a little bit later, a little more, and then I want to try to explain something. But Ayin b'Mishnah Reish Brachos. If you go back to the Mishnah that we started off with, Dizman ha'aschala lishain ad soif ha'ashmira rishayna, and he says, V'af Rabban Gamliel v'chachamim moedim lezeh shemash mitalmidei Rabbeinu Yonah. Well, we know Rabban Gamliel doesn't hold like that. He has a different. No, Rabban Gamliel has a different shot in the word b'shachbacha. It means when you sleep. But everybody agrees, Rabban Gamliel, the Chacham, everybody agrees that the normal time to go to sleep is at the beginning of the night. Rabban Gamliel also agrees with that. He's just teaching b'shachbacha differently. So therefore, his kids who came back from the Beis HaMishta in Mitnacht, it was like, what's going on over here? You're supposed to have gone, it's past your bedtime. I think there's a big Kabbalah to this Beis HaMishta. I just want to pause here for a moment and just work with me for a minute. This whole thing is a continuation. I don't know what his Seder was, but it's all continuation of what we learned in Ois Chav Daled. If you'll go back to Ois Chav Daled, you'll see one clear hemshech. And of the pshat and the Gimel Mishmaris Hava Halayla and these three Mishmaris. Now, the Mishmaris, Reb Tzadok explains over and over again, the Laila, let's put it that way, the Laila is referring to Golus. And the Golus is Lila, makes sense, yeah. Golus is Lila, like you said, Av is a dark month. Begins to get dark, which is kind of funny. But the Golus is Lila, all through the Tanakh. The Geula is called Alois HaShachar, all through Chazal. Kachi Gulas and Shel Yisrael, Kima Kima. The sun is coming up. Morning has broken. It's a beautiful thing, and the Golus is like this downtime for Klal Yisrael. And we divide the Golus into, I'm reminding you of what we learned in Chav Daled, you divide the Golus into three. So it's quite interesting. I pointed out then, I will point it out again. If you divide, let's say the Golus is 2,000 years, like Chazal say. Now let's say the Golus starts with the Churban Beis HaMikdash. So what are we talking about? The Golus was in what year? The Churban Beis HaMikdash Ba'Sheni was in what year? Shivim, right? 68, 70. 68 was Rabbi Yaacov ben Zakkai, and 70 was the Chorban Beis HaMikdash. Which now that means that the end of the Golus is in what year? Approximately, I don't know exactly when the Golus starts, exactly when it ends, but around 2070. You should all have a long life. So around 2007 is pretty easy. If the Golus is 2,000 years, which it says, Alpayim, it says. So if the Golus is 2,000 years, and a year means a year, the way we mean a year, which why not? Why be mitvakeach on it? It means to say that by 2070, you're going to have a complete gula. And I've been talking on Shabbos afternoon that according to the Goin, the Aschalta de Gula is in 1840. So it's a long, it's a long process of gula, relatively long. In other words, there's nobody alive today that was born in 1840. So, but Agav, just while I'm here, I mentioned this on Shabbos very briefly, but the Goin called, according to the Talmid Agra, called Tafresh, 1840, called it the Zman of Gula, and then Mashiach didn't come, and it became a bit of a Shapsai Tzvi type disappointment. Like, okay, we thought Mashiach was going to come, but just if you look at the Kol HaTorah, which was quoting the Gra, it never said Mashiach is going to come. In 1840, what he said is it begins the process of Geula. That's all. Aschalta de Gula. Now we don't know how long that takes. The Gra didn't say how long that takes. I'm saying that l'chara by 2070, if the dating is correct, and the Alpayim Shanas to be taken literally, so somewhere, right, where are we now? 23. Okay, so Bezras Hashem, somewhere in the next 50 years, we'll have a gula. It looks good.
It doesn't go to the year 6,000 on like that.
So it's 2000, 2000, 2000. So that would give you another couple hundred years. Maybe there's a mistake in years, but I'm making a different kind of a cheshbon.
I prefer yours.
Okay. I'm not making any hysterical predictions. I'm just saying that it's a way to understand it. So what we're talking about is the night. Just bear with me for a moment. What we're talking about is the night of Golus is Alpayim Shana. Is 2,000 years. So 2000, let's say 2070. If you want Mashiach to come today, the way to figure it out is that the really beginning of the Chorban started with Hordus. So you can get back a little bit. What year was that, Nasano? Gishmak, right? Hordus, like Hordus is the time of Hillel. Hordus spoke to Hillel, Hillel and Shammai.
20 before the coming.
Yeah.
Shammai sentenced him to death, didn't he?
Hordus?
Shammai
Oh yeah. Big machlek is about Hordus, but I'm just saying in terms of chronology. So you could be, we could be maktim if it's useful. It's, predicting Mashiach is never such a good thing. But understanding Golos is a good thing. So understanding Golos means that we're getting Karav La'alois HaShachar, however you want to figure out the years. I'll tell you something, just like a little bit of a historical chronology, which is, I'm not a bucky in this, but Rabbi Tzadok said earlier, I think it was in Chav Zayin, he said that really the Chorban was in 70, but the Geula still had its light present. Unlike in the world of Gashmias, he shut off the light and there is no light. This was more like a sunset. So there was still the light all the way in past Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. There was still, the proof he brings is we were still in Eretz Yisrael. Where was the Golos? The Golos, it's not like there was a Chorban Beis HaMikdash and we ran to Poland. That's not what happened. There was a Chorban Beis HaMikdash and we ran to Yavne and we ran all over Eretz Yisrael. And Rabbi Akiva made an alliance with Bar Kochba. That was all after the Chorban. So this was all Oirais Lemafreya of the Geula. That's what Tzadok says. And when did all that end? When did we actually have to leave Eretz Yisrael? How's your history? When do we actually have to run away? So the Muslim conquer of Eretz Yisrael. That's when they would not let us live here.
But wasn't there always a group of Jews who stayed in Tzfas?
Yeah. Not about Tzfas, but Modi and Pekian. I don't know. We know about one lady. What? I'm sure there were I'm not an expert in this. I'm intimidated by the experts here, but when the Yishuv of Eretz Yisrael really went down, we're talking about when the Muslims took over Israel, in my opinion, which was something like the year 600. And when did the Muslim era, when did it end? Crusades, 1099. So you have exactly the halfway mark of the 2,000 years. Hatzois. Meaning we don't look at the Christians, the Crusaders.
Exactly, redeemers. They were worse than
They got rid of the Muslims.
They were worse than
Got rid of the Muslims.
they were. Muslims didn't expel us. They just.
I'm not look. Night in Gullus is bitter. I'm not saying there was any. It was midnight. It was the darkest time. But I'm saying in the language of Reb Tzadok, I believe in many places, the darkest time. And I don't want to run to the cliche of the dark before the dawn, but what I'm going to Reb Tzadok's lesson of Rubai Kakulai. So the fact is that in 1099 we passed the Roiv, and once we passed the Roiv, so okay, there's still a Holocaust to do. There's still a Spanish Inquisition and expulsions and pogroms and crusades, but the crusades were terrible, right? But the crusades. And when did the crusades? While we're at it, when did the crusades end? 1291, the final crusade. So like Rashi, like that time. So where is that on our night gullus scale? End of the Mishmar. End of the Mishmar. I'll let you make a table, but because I didn't. But it's actually quite fascinating that this whole Emtsa, let's say if we were saying Gimel Mishmar is Have HaGolus, so the middle Golus is bookended by the Muslim conquer and the Muslim exit, right? That was and the new Tkufa started with the Crusaders, and the old Tkufa, the Tkufa of Kedusha, ended when the Muslims came in and threw us out. So it's an ironic thing, but if you learn Reb Tzadok, we're used to this type of everything being upside down. So what comes out is that the darkest times in history, getting thrown out of Eretz Yisrael, some of the darkest times in history, it's hard to compare with, like there's a lot of competition for the darkest times in history, but the darkest times in history were the times when we can say in the world of Reb Tzadok, where everything is upside down, that Christian crusades, Rubai Kakulai, we're already on our way up. Mm-hmm. That's right. That's when you buy, right? Buy low, sell high. If Rabbi Gamliel here, like the way the Meiri says, is Rabbi Gamliel the Yavne, Agav. Just want to make a horror here. Like there's a story with this also. There's a Torah on this too, because the truth of the matter is the Chorban Beis Hamikdash was. By the way, if I'm speculating too much, so whatever, we're learning a little history. If I'm right, it's really gives meaning to the times that we're living in. But I was just thinking about this, that Rabbi Gamliel, if this was Rabbi Gamliel the Yavne, even if it wasn't, but if it was, even if it was the first Rabbi Gamliel, which was, I guess, the grandson of Hillel, which was right after the time of Hordus and the Chorban began. But let's say it was Rabbi Gamliel the Yavne, like the Meiri says, the Rabbi Gamliel in the Mishnah and Brachas. So, like just think about that period philosophically for a moment and historically. What happened was that Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai, who was the Nasi in 68, and he's negotiating with Vespasian, and he says two things, which are obviously, he said three things, but two things which are very mekushar. One is Tein li Yavne v'chachameha, and I want back, this was the negotiation, Shal Shalta, or Shal Shalusa, de Gamliasa. and then Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, interestingly, kind of disappears from the scene in Chazal, and you would think Tein li Yavne v'chachamea, that he's going to Yavne, and now he's going to be a Rashiva and a Nasi in the head of a Sanhedrin in Yavne. No, he moves to Ber Chayil. He moves to a separate place outside of, I don't even know where it is. Where is it? I don't know where. Do you know where Ber Chayil is? But it's up north. But he moves to a different place. And why? He steps aside so that his own political bakasha could be Mekuyim, and Rabbi Gamliel could once again become the Nasi. So Rabbi Gamliel the Avne, Tein li Yavne v'chachameha. So who's the chachameha? For that I need Shalshalta de Rabbi Gamliel. Shalshalta de Gamliasa. What's the Shalshalta de Gamliasa? Because Rabbi Gamliel, all the Gamliels, Rabbi Gamliel, Shimon Gamliel, up to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, that was all from Hillel. And Hillel was Darasiri to Ezra. And it was very important. What was introduced here was this kind of messianic line, if you will, of this is not just like I'm the Nasi of the Sanhedrin. No, we're talking about a whole program, starting with Ezra of coming back to Eretz Yisrael until the Geula. But I just, right, am I, everybody with me on this? It's like that part is clear. I think that's clear. That's all in Chazal. What's interesting is, if I have your ear, is that what really happened in this negotiation between Vespasian and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai is Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai stretched out the Geula a little bit more. I knew that it was all over with the Chorban Beis HaMikdash, but it wasn't all over with the Chorban Beis HaMikdash. Why? Because you could say that he had the foresight to realize we need to learn Torah, but what he really did is he was machzir the Shalshalta de Gamliasa. He brought in the Hillel dynasty back, and there wasn't a complete Chorban because of that. And if there wasn't a complete Chorban because of that, mamash like Reb Tzadok says, that you're stretching the Geula out another couple of generations. And that's what Rabbi Gamliel represents. What's Rabbi Gamliel's shita? Ad alois hashachar. I've just gotten to a place which is too big for me, but I just wanted to put out there that ad alois hashachar. But if you really want to start thinking, his sons came back from the Beis Hamishta, and they said, "We're not going to sleep. But it's bedtime. Not going to sleep." Maisa, whether we know it or not, everything here is so significant. Maisa uvau banav mi beis hamishta. Amr like harinu eshma. We didn't say Shema yet. What does that mean? Is it still daytime or not? It's still b'shach. Can we hold? Right, still nighttime. Like harinu eshma. Amr lahemim lo yala amud hashachar. Chayavim atem la'alis. So I'm gonna leave the brain teaser with you because there's so many ways to understand it. But I'm just putting up the milestone thoughts here, and that is that Rabbi Gamliel himself. That again, let's just do a chazara and then we'll close this over here. The chazara is that that Tu B'Av represents the Emsiusa of the year. Chatzos in Chavdalad, which is refers to the Emsa, the Emsiusa of the Lila. Midnight. Midnight is the middle of the middle Mishmar. So it's the middle of the middle Mishmar. The second Mishmar, the whole Lila represents Golus. The middle Mishmar, if in a way, represents the deepest Golus, because we still had the Oros of the Beis HaMikdash all the way through the first Mishmar, which would mean in my opinion, on the calendar, if you're looking at the 2,000 years, till the year 600 when there was the Muslim takeover of Israel. What a paradigm shift in Eretz Yisrael. I think that's when the Dome of Iraq and all goes to 620, 630, like that. So that was the beginning of this bitter agolus, this real like middle of the night type of thing, which is starting from there and going all the way through until 1099 or whatever when the Crusaders came in. So you have the Muslims, forgive me, world of internet, represented this darkest time. They represented the darkest time, which is interesting. What we're seeing, and comes Reb Tzadok, and he says a little bit of chizuk. He's saying that even if you're at the darkest time in history, if you're 1 minute past the darkest time in history, rubai kakulai. Basically, we're done. We're done. We didn't have a Holocaust yet, but
the analogy is interesting that you use going up a hill and then coming down, because
which is be the other way.
You see, because you see the acceleration of Yeridus Hadoros also after that point. Like you had this height of Torah also, where like Torah was really, really strong in those generations, and now it's just you see. I don't know.
By the way, like according to, as I said, with Reb Tzadok, everything is up, and whatever's up is down, and whatever's down is up. So our metaphors get confusing, but Reb Tzadok doesn't believe in Niskat Nadaris. In Niskat Nadaris, he doesn't believe that we got less. He thinks we're more. He thinks we're more. He learns different shot in the Gemara, but Reb Tzadok famously says that the Gemara says, Im heim kemalachim anachnu kimnei adam. If the previous generations are like malachim, then we're like regular people. So Reb Tzadok says, v'yadua l'kulam, that regular people are much more chashuv than malachim. Donkeys is the ultimate. What do you mean? Mashiach comes on a donkey. Donkey means that you're Makadish.
Not donkey,
Yeah, like a chamar. But okay, you could. He takes care of all. He takes care of all this. Somebody, a Misnagid, was once wanted to insult the second Lubavitcher Rebbe. What do they call him? It was the Balatanya. What was the second one?
No, he's the first.
Someone said it was the third. No, who was the second? The Mittler Rebbe. So the Mittler Rebbe. So he told them Chabad stands for Chamor B'li Das. He said, "Thank you." That's beautiful. He thought that was a beautiful. He thought that was a beautiful description of Avodas Hashem, of just going with the Ratzon Hashem. So, but my point is, Reb Tzadok doesn't hold of so much of Niskat Nadaris the way you and I understand it. That if we were in the time of Reb Chaim Brisker, we would be much bigger. Lamdan, time of Abaye V'Rava, and of course, in a certain way, they were bigger. But in another way, we're on the shoulders of giants, and we have all this life experience, and there's all this Gullus experience, and all that we have a Talmud Bavli, which they didn't have, and in a certain way, our Avodas Hashem is more difficult in these days, and therefore more valuable. So if you start looking at this with the Lila, it's so interesting how up is down and down is up, and we should all be zocha to the Gula Shlema. Thank you for hearing me out on this.